Today is day 13 of 40 days in God's presence. I'm so glad that you're here. We are talking about the God who opens blind eyes. And before you think this is a little teaching or a little study on healing, it is actually about seeing, and seeing physically as well as seeing spiritually. The verse is John 9:25, where the blind man who was healed says, "One thing I know, I was blind, but now I see." And that is such a beautiful quote that we've heard so often because it speaks to our experience with God. At one time in our life, we were blind, but now we see. And you cannot argue with that. And the Pharisees were trying to argue with that. So the miracle of God healing this man was sandwiched between two conversations. And one was as they walked up and they saw the blind man, they knew of him, obviously, and they knew that he had been blind since birth. And so the question was not, the question was not, was not, did he sin or did his parents sin? The question was, who sinned, this man or his parents? And so Jesus made it very clear at that point it had nothing to do with sin. It was for God's glory that this man was blind, and so that his testimony would show. And not only that he was healed physically, but at the end of the story, Jesus finds him again and says, "Do you believe?" And he says, "Yes." And so he not only was healed, his eyes, his physical eyes were healed, and he was given sight, but he was also given spiritual sight. And so it's such a beautiful thing. In John chapter 8, Jesus had said, this is just the previous chapter in the Bible. We don't know exactly how many days that was, but obviously the context of it was, "I am the light of the world, and whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." Further on in that chapter, right before we go into chapter 9, he was arguing, Jesus was, the Pharisees and the religious leaders were arguing with Jesus about Abraham. They were having this conversation about Abraham. And he said, "Very, very truly, before Abraham was born, I am." So obviously that was a heavy and that was strong. And I'm sure that was wild at the moment to even hear Jesus say those words. And they wanted to stone him because of that, but he said, "It's not my time," and he was able to walk away from that. From that situation, it says, as he went along, so it doesn't say the next day, it doesn't say, later on, it says, as he went along, he saw a blind man from birth, and his disciples asked him, "Who sinned?" And so we already discussed that. And Jesus went right from, "But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him," to, "While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." And so Jesus clearly took that conversation from his physical healing to the essence of the fact that I am the light of the world. I am bringing light to the dark world. Obviously, if you are blind physically, then you are living in darkness. But spiritually, there are many people who can see with their physical eyes, but are living in darkness. And Jesus came to bring light to them. And so the second conversation had to do with the Pharisees investigating this man's healing. And they obviously were questioning the authenticity of it. They wanted to put Jesus down, away. They wanted to not give him credit for this. And so it's like they tried to confuse the man as they were questioning him. They even brought in his parents, and his parents were like, "He's an adult, ask him." They didn't want to get caught, they didn't want to get thrown out of the temple. And so they were definitely not wanting to be a part of this conversation. And they were questioning him so strongly, and that's when he said that line of, "All I know, all I can tell you is I was blind, but now I see." And so the really cool part is that when Jesus had heard, it says in verse 35, Jesus heard that they had thrown the man out because they were done talking to him. He would not give them satisfaction. The Pharisees were more concerned about rule breaking and law breaking. They couldn't care less that he was healed, just that he had been healed on the Sabbath. They wanted to punish Jesus for doing this healing rather than celebrate the power of God, right? And that is because they were spiritually blind. They may not have been physically blind, but they were definitely spiritually blind. Verse 35 in chapter 9 says, Jesus heard that they had thrown the man out. And when he found him, when Jesus found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? And he said, well, who is he? Tell me so that I can believe, which is interesting, right? I mean, I'm sure he was like, well, tell me, are you really the one? And he says, the one speaking to you is him. And so he said, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped. Jesus said after that, I have come into this world so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind, or the fact that those who think that they can see will recognize that they are spiritually blind, and sin actually causes that. Sin may not have caused this young man to be blind from birth, but sin does cause spiritual blindness in us. And so how awesome was that? That Jesus brought out this teaching. It was more than just, can I heal or am I a healer? It is not only do I heal, but I can actually bring light to the world, and I can heal the spiritual blindness. So personal truth. Once you've seen the light, darkness is not an option. Personal prayer. Jesus, thank you for opening my eyes that I may see and understand who you really are. Help me to spend my days helping others to find the joy of your light, because we are the light of the world, it says in Matthew chapter 5. Because Jesus is in us, we are to shine his light. So are there any blind spots in your life? That is so when I prepared this, or when I read this for the first time, I just said, Lord, show me, because we want him to turn his spotlight on our heart. Again, if I would encourage you, like I did with the other day 12, to read Psalm 139 and Psalm 23. I would encourage you here, read John 8 and John 9, and then Psalm 139 as well. Really goes right along with this about the light and about searching our hearts. So God, show us if there's any blind spots, because we know that perfection is overrated and we have not arrived at the destination. There is no destination while we are on this earth. Our destination is heaven. We are sojourners going through this life. And so progress is where it's at, like continually letting God shine his light in our heart, go into each door of our home, and giving him permission to be our ultimate accountability partner. And then seeing that progress, and as we let his light into more areas of our heart, we're able to shine his light to this world and bring him glory.